everyone, good evening. You've kick-started the Rise with India Prime Time with ET now, and we're doing so with the Money Show, your one-stop shop for all personal money matters. I'm Mubina Kapasi, and we have lots lined up on the show. First, we are going to be taking on board the opinion of market veterans and all the announcements that the Finance Minister made, and also how is it going to impact your money and your life. Later on the show, we are here celebrating Women's Equality Day, and hence we thought it's the best opportunity to get women a dose of how they can take charge of their finances, not depend on the male members of their house to get their house of finances in order. Also, did you know that now, of course, the Hindu Succession Act or the Indian Succession Act says that there should be no distinction between the heirs, and that you as well are entitled to a share of your father's property on an equal footing. We will be understanding what is a woman entitled to when it comes to hereditary property. And finally, are you looking to make that leap from salary to entrepreneurship? We spoke to one such daring lady, Mansi Mansari of Just Deliveries, on what it took to drive her to start her own business, leaving a stable job. All of this lined up on the Money Show. Like I said, it's a very, very action-packed day today. Let's just hope the Bimal Jalan panel report is not released over the next 1 hour. How and what did the Finance Ministry announce on Friday that will actually impact you, your money, and the way that you handle your money? We decided to decode the exact impact on individuals like you and me. Karunya Rao joins us with that. Karunya.
Well, Mubina, there are a host of announcements that were done to give a fillip to the economy, to give a boost to the consumption and demand scenario. But yes, there are a lot of takeaways for you and I, and for all of individual consumers out there, individual people out there, and will impact their savings and their money as well. First up, of course, a big takeaway, a big announcement made by the FM was that there will be no surcharge on LTCG arising on share sale. That is a hugely positive development, even for individual investors, for small-time investors, for any kind of individuals out there who do park their monies or who do invest in the markets, in the equity markets. All IT orders or communications, they will have to specify a unique documentation identification number, without which order will be treated as good as not received. That's another interesting announcement made on Friday, which could help people and normal citizens, Aam Aadmis out there. Thirdly, banks have agreed to pass on rate cuts to consumers in a timely manner. Once again, for those looking to take loans, this might be the best time, because with RBI easing its policy, easing its stance when it comes to the interest rates, they will actually reap benefits, because banks will now do it in a timely manner and pass on the benefit to all the borrowers out there. Public sector banks will return loan documents within 15 days of loan closure. That's another big announcement made for the ease of citizens like you and me. And lastly, the government has deferred the revision of one-time registration fee on new cars bought till June 2020. So the huge issue of increased cost of ownership, that does not prevail any longer, because the registration cost, which was hiked and which was a huge issue dampening the sentiment for new buyers, has now been deferred to June 2020 next year, almost a year from now on. So that should also help boost consumer sentiment.
Well, let's hope it does. But yeah, essentially, those are all the benefits that have come by from the Finance Ministry's stable that will, of course, affect customers like you and me. But here on the Money Show, we are celebrating Women's Equality Day. 26th August worldwide is celebrated as Women's Equality Day. And it's important that we acknowledge a day like this, especially because there are several aspects in life where women are not treated as equal to their male counterparts. And of course, the most recent one that has got the most outcry has been with respect to pay. So talking about feminism and talking about women empowerment, we thought that who better than to talk about shuttler PV Sindhu, who has made all Indians proud, all girls proud by scripting history to emerge as the first Indian woman to win World Badminton Championship. So we thought, let's kickstart the show by taking PV Sindhu's name, and I hope she's an inspiration to all the women out there. And now, back to the Money Show, where we are talking about financial planning for women. To take us through that, we have with us, joining in from the Bengaluru studios, Mrin Agarwal of FinSafe. Mrin, thank you for joining us on ET Now. When we talk about women equality, the first thing that comes to mind, at least for me, as an urban, millennial, born and brought up in a city like Mumbai, has got to be pay gap, because that is a hugely big factor that's affecting women, especially in the corporate world. However, of course, I'm talking about it from a very micro point of view. If we have to look at some of the most common aspects where women are not treated equal to men, what would you identify them as, especially on the career front or on the financial front?
Thank you, Mubina. Well, of course, you touched upon the gender pay gap, and I think, the gender pay gap really translates into the gender savings gap as far as money management is concerned. And obviously, if you have a 20% gender pay gap that exists in India, and that translating into lesser savings for women, well, that's not a great situation to really be in. Other than that, I think most women really find it very, very difficult to do financial planning, solely because, one, they don't know who to reach out to, what is a trustworthy source that they can connect with for financial planning. Financial planning is not a life skill that is really taught anywhere, whether it's at school or it's at college. Women do get daunted by financial advisors. They do have their insecurities that, what if we were to lose this money, because then they are going to be judged as somebody who lost money. Spouses maybe not be very forthcoming about money. So women do find it very, very difficult as far as financial planning is concerned. And I think the bigger issue from the gender pay gap is really the fact that the impact that it has on women's lives, because they're going to end up basically saving much lesser as compared to men.
Yeah, obviously, if you earn less, you're going to be ending up saving less as well, and that's going to be a big problem. And unfortunately, Mrin, this is not a problem that looks like it's going to get solved anytime soon. I mean, I've just heard of Iceland, where there seems to be the closest pay gap between men and women, but otherwise, world over, it is a persisting problem. So in such a scenario, Mrin, apart from the Stridhan, what they call, and apart from, of course, the monthly revenue streams, or income stream rather, from their salary or anything else, Mrin, how can then women better handle their finances when they know already that they will be, at the back foot when it comes to earning, money from men? I mean, can they follow the same investment strategies or financial planning strategies that men do, or would you advise that they should take something that's a little more customized for women?
Well, first of all, I think women really need to get around to accepting that this is a big problem. The other big thing that I normally see is the fact that I don't find women prioritizing money management. And as I said, the double googly of, first of all, having lesser pay and translating into lesser savings, and then not prioritizing money management really means that they're very, very far away from equality, right? So I think the first and the foremost thing that women really need to do is get around to prioritizing money management as something which is as important as their family. And of course it is, because it helps in only furthering their family's financial dreams, right? So I think the first thing is that they really need to get around to doing money management, just like how women do each and everything else to manage their lives. To start off, certainly, obviously, since they're not able to rely on others, I think they need to start reading up. There are lots of TV shows. You are running a great show out here, of course. There are lots of personal finance columns that are there in the newspapers as well. Of course, if you're looking at investing in mutual funds, the mutual fund company site or Mutual Fund Sahi Hai website has a lot of nice reading information. It's got a lot of nice videos on basics of mutual funds as well. So I think the first thing would really be then to start reading up and then really start investing. See, unless you really invest money and you actually lose money, you're really never gonna get it. So start investing. It's also very, very important to take risk, because what I typically see is that most women tend to choose traditional investments, and these investments will really not help beat inflation. So it's not a great idea to have all your money invested out there. So you do need to learn to take some risk in your portfolio. And of course, at some point, once you're a little bit comfortable with investing, get a fee-only financial planner to help create a financial plan for yourself. But the key mantras would really be: start investing as early as possible, keep investing, and remain invested.
You know, Bryn, we also get this very common query, and I appreciate the fact that you also mentioned certain mistakes that women make. Investing very safe. I mean, in general, women are said to be more conservative than men. That's a behavioral trait that, you know, many reports have observed, many experts have observed. So yeah, that's a mistake that many women do make. You know, another question, Bryn, that we do very often get actually on our The Money Show portals and on our Twitter accounts is that, is it all right if I'm already investing with my husband? Then do I need to still separately make like an investing or a demat account, simply speaking, or should I open an individual SIP account in my own name if I already am investing with my husband? And I'm sure, Bryn, you as well may have got this query a lot from women. So how important is it to have something in your personal capacity as well?
Well, it is extremely important, because when you're investing with your husband, I'm presuming that your husband is the primary holder and you're only the secondary holder. Especially if you are earning an income, the investments need to be in your name. And even if you're not earning an income, there should be some investments which are there in your name as well.
Okay. All right. And you know, in fact, later on the show, Bryn, I'm also going to be talking about certain behavioral traits that just naturally make women better investors. But for now, I think let's address some questions and queries that we have received, you know, on The Money Show with respect to, of course, financial planning for women. And they seem to be very, very different. In fact, we've got some video queries and we're just going to get to that in a bit. The first one is from Garima Jain. She works with a very famous wedding photographer. Listen into her query.
I'm a 28-year-old sales manager for a wedding photographer. So my work entails a lot of travel, and I don't have the time to physically go meet a relationship manager or an investment banker or manager with regards to my investment. So can you suggest me, you know, the best way to invest without being physically present and to remotely check all my investments online?
Well, you know, fair enough. A lot of times women and everybody for that matter does believe that, okay, when it comes to managing your money, I need to go and have regular meetings with my financial planner, sit down, see what the progress has been, how much have I earned, how much have I lost, so on and so forth. But Mrin, in today's day and age where technology has, of course, made life much easier for such working and traveling women like Garima, what would you recommend she do? And really, is it necessary for that physically going and meeting your financial manager every now and then?
Well, for a start, what you could look at doing is that for the first time, I think for the first time, she would need to meet her financial planner. And that's just simply because, you know, you can have a conversation on Skype, but it's always nicer to just be face to face and have the ability to have a more deeper conversation. I think for the first time, if she can spare a couple of hours, she should spend some time with a fee-only financial planner who can help draw up a financial plan for her. He can also help her invest her investments online. Of course, there are various industry platforms available like mutual fund utilities, or you have the registrar-based platforms like MyCams or Carvi MFS. And then, of course, there are so many other private platforms that are available. You can also invest in the mutual fund company websites if you're investing in mutual funds. So I think, the first time she needs to spend a couple of hours with the financial planner, but really after that, she can just invest through any of these platforms where her performance is updated, the performance of her funds is updated regularly. She can get access to various other reports in terms of capital gain reports and stuff like that, and really track her portfolio online.
Well, it's very simple to track your portfolio online, but yeah, do try and remove a few hours, at the beginning of your investment journey to go meet your relationship manager or your personal finance manager, discuss what your strategy is going to be, and then of course take off for all your travels and your work. Okay, we have TV actor Farah Titina, who actually has a very interesting query. Let's listen into what Farah has to ask.
I'm a freelancer. That's the reason I don't have a stable income, and my income keeps varying up and down. So I wanted to know the best possible investment plan where I can invest my money correctly.
Well, I think the gig economy, as we call it, or the freelancing economy, has certainly moved beyond, limits and beyond bounds. And it's something that has, I suppose, created another industry itself, which in turn has created another set of questions for personal finance managers like Mrin. So Mrin, one month your income may be 1 lakh rupees, and the next month it's 5,000 rupees. So in such a scenario, how do you decide how much should you set aside as savings? Where should you invest in as well? I mean, what flexible investment products are out there that would adjust itself based on your monthly income levels, Mrin?
She would have an estimation on her last year's average income. And she would have an idea in terms of what her minimum incomes would be looking like. So I think based on that, she can figure out a minimum amount that she's going to be investing every month and do that. And I think in the months where she has a surplus, she should just certainly look at just going and adding it onto those investments. I know it's going to be like a little cumbersome because every time you have that additional amount, you have to go back and you have to invest out there. But given the fact that every month she does not have a fixed amount coming in, this would be the optimal way to really do it.
On that note, Farah Garima, thank you for sharing with us your questions. And Mrin, thank you as well for joining us on this very special edition of The Money Show. Remember, folks, you need to take charge of your finances. Don't let prejudices come in your way. It's okay to lose some money because, hey, that's the story of investments. And don't forget, even the biggies out there have made financial mistakes. You too are totally allowed to do so. Well, we'll take a very quick break right here on the show, but when we come back, it's still going to be all about women, because it's very important for women to understand what are their rights when it comes to hereditary property. Stay tuned for more of all of this on The Money Show. Hi everyone, welcome back. You're watching The Money Show on ET. Now, we've been talking about women's equality because today is the day where we celebrate that, or rather make women aware about their rights. One important right that women need to be aware of is with respect to their rights when it comes to ancestral property. If their father dies, what are they entitled to when it comes to the property? Very often we do believe that the son tends to take away the property, but there have been alterations in 2005 to the Hindu Succession Act, which does give rights to the daughter as well to claim her share in the property. So what exactly are those rights? How exactly can women negotiate her way into the workings of a Hindu undivided family, or an HUF, which of course is the most common way of business in Indian society? To talk about all of that, I have with me Rishabh Shroff, partner and co-head of private client practice with Cyril Amarchand and Mangaldas. Rishabh, thank you for joining us on The Money Show. Different religions, of course, have led to different laws as well that govern those people that follow those religions. Of course, the most common one, with the majority of our viewers, practicing Hinduism. Let's talk then about the Hindu Succession Act. I mean, there was that amendment made in 2005, which did give women as well rights to be entitled to the equal share of the property. So if you could enlighten all our viewers about that.
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. And of course, thank you very much for inviting me onto the show. So maybe to start with, maybe taking a step back and giving you the context of where Hindu succession is sort of now and what's happening in society today. I think we're seeing the emergence of very progressive laws and judges and even legislature towards Hindu succession and towards ancestral property. So in 2005, like you rightly mentioned, there was a major amendment which happened to the Hindu Succession Act, which in a very simple sort of way, just three lines were passed in the amendment, which made women at par with the sons when it comes to ancestral property. So before 2005, when a woman got married and went to her husband's house, her connection to her father's HUF ancestral property was severed completely. So what has happened after the amendment, which really takes place on September 9th, 2005, it says that any woman, even after she gets married, has a right at birth in her father's HUF. So that means her siblings, her brothers and sisters have an equal right to the father's ancestral property immediately upon birth. So and that implies two things. One is that she has a right to ask for partition as her brothers could have done, and then secondly, she has a right to transfer and deal with that property as she may desire to do. So similar to what you may do for your house, what you may do for your cash, for your shares, you also have the right under law to bequeath and deal with your joint family property as you must. So I think this is a very fundamental change that came about in 2005, and since then it's been about 10 plus years right now. We are seeing a lot of queries about how this impacts joint families, how it impacts typically joint Gujarati and Marwadi families. A lot of queries from those sects, and I think it's been a very progressive move that has come about because of it.
Okay. What about spouses, Rishabh? I mean, we spoke about sons and daughters, but let's say if the husband has passed away, does his widowed wife as well, is she entitled to the same sort of rights as the daughter is entitled to, or would hers be different?
Good question. So if we just step back again, so under Hindu law, there are really two kinds of rights that exist. So one which I just spoke about right now is called a co-parsoner. So a co-parsoner is basically somebody, a son or a daughter after 2005, who has a right immediately upon birth to the HUF property. So like I spoke about, the daughters and the sons have an equal right in that case. Now when you speak about wives and even potentially daughter-in-laws, so, well, obviously they're not born in the same family they're married into. So they would be something called as a member. A member does not have a right in the father-in-law's property. So what she basically has is a right of maintenance. So, for example, if her husband passes away and the father-in-law, the karta, is still alive, she has a right to ask the karta, the father-in-law, for maintenance of her life and maintenance of her costs and expenses, but she does not have a fundamental right in the father-in-law's HUF.
So she will not own the property, but she can get a stipend of sorts, basically from the property or basically from the HUF. That's what you're trying to say, Rishabh. Okay, all right.
Exactly.
So go
Father-in-law,
ahead,
but not
Rishabh.
separation of the property.
Okay, understood. All right, Rishabh. When we talk about equal rights for daughters and sons, does that also mean then that the son is not allowed to then, without the permission of the daughter, sort of sell the property, transfer the rights? Does it mean that as well? I mean, does it mean that all the siblings will collectively have to come to a decision whether to dispose of a property or retain it or anything else?
Yeah, so yes, what you're saying is right. So basically, in a HUF property, everybody is an equal owner of the property. So in case the father-in-law or the father, in this case, the karta, was to sell the property, he has inherent right to do so under HUF law, under Hindu succession law. But what happens in practice is that given there are so many joint owners and not everybody may be seeing eye to eye, need to sell the property in the first place, or they may disagree with the valuation, they may disagree with the requirements set in the first place. So very often in practice we see then typically these situations come about where the property is trying to be sold, somebody or the other files some injunction in the court and tries to stop the property being disposed of. So to answer your question, I think yes, they have a right to stop the property being sold. It becomes then a subject matter of dispute in the high court. And because of this reason, we've seen a lot of families since 2005 actually come to lawyers, come to accountants, and ask for the actual HUF to be dissolved. So they're basically bypassing the sale and the HUF directly, and they say, let's dissolve the HUF first. You get what you're entitled to, I take what I'm entitled to, and let's do what we want with what we own separately. So we don't usually in practice see Karta selling HUF property because of this reason.
You know, in fact, that's the reason why, Rishabh, because we have seen such tussles reach the High Court. We have seen such tussles reach the High Court, and that's the reason why I thought, you know, let's ask you this question. Okay, apart from now HUFs and those, you know, the Hindus governed by the Hindu Succession Act, let's talk about, you know, non-Hindus, Muslims, Christians, etc. What part of the property are non-Hindu women entitled to from their father's property? Is it the same? And I'm talking about all property. I mean, I'm talking about the bank accounts, the real estate, the business, the share in the business for that matter, all of that. For a non-Hindu woman, what is she entitled to?
I'm going to give you a very unfortunate answer over here, is that unfortunately I'm not as familiar with Muslim, Christian and Parsi succession laws as opposed to Hindu law. So I'm going to give you a very basic answer. It's not the complete picture, but I think this may need further examination from your viewers. So if a couple is married under the Indian Succession Act, so for example, a Hindu and a Muslim marry and they're governed by the Indian Succession Act, their succession inheritance is not governed by personal laws, but is governed by the provisions of the Indian Succession Act. So in simple terms, what it means is that in case of a husband passing away and he's survived by a widow and let's say his children, his son and his daughter, the widow would take 1/3 of the property and the children, 2 children or more, could take 2/3 of it. So that implies, suppose you only survive by, let's say, one son and you survive also by your widow, the widow gets only 1/3, but the surviving sole son can take away 2/3 of the property in that case. And it gets a little bit more complicated in case you survive by a widow and not children, but other kindred family members of the deceased husband. Then in that case, the widow takes half and the other kindred family members take another half. So in a way, the succession to a Hindu-Muslim couple would depend on who exactly is being survived upon the husband's death.
Okay, now let's say if the male heir of the family, the son, her brother basically, has however without her knowledge perhaps conducted certain action that has led to her losing out, her rights on the property. Let's talk about Hindu since that's your specialty. What is the reprieve that is available to her then as per law?
It's very simple answer. It keeps the litigation team in a firm and the corporate and the counsels in the court very busy. What they have a right to do is challenge the entire transaction in the first place and sort of unwind the actual sale of it. So usually in your example, where let's say the Karta has sold off the property without the consent of the women, or just in a father has sold a property which jointly belongs to him and his daughter, for example, then in that case what the woman is entitled to do is file a case in the relevant court, Bombay High Court, Delhi, wherever the property may be situated, and ask for the transaction to be unwound. And they would do so on the basis that as a joint on the property, either as a co-partner or as a joint owner, her consent was not taken, nor was she compensated for the sale, and because of that reason the sale is per se invalid, and usually the courts are in favor of unwinding the transaction or giving her compensation in lieu of the sale. So it gets a bit more complicated once you're creating rights in the property being sold. For example, if the property is sold to a developer who started building something on the land, or you're creating third-party bank or mortgage rights on the property. So you may not always get the property back, but you may get your compensatory share of the money of the sale in case the transaction is being potentially unwound.
All right. Okay. Rishabh, I actually wanted to squeeze in one more question, but unfortunately, I'll have to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us and enlightening all our women viewers out there with respect to their rights when it comes to their father's property. Remember, you too have the right to be a co-partner. That's the term that essentially Rishabh used, if in case yours is a Hindu undivided family under which business is being conducted. Okay, folks, we'll take a very quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to be heading over to 1441 Pizzeria because there is a lady who's going to be joining me who has taken the bold step of leaving her very stable job in Korea to dive into risky business affairs. If you too want to make that step, I'm going to be catching up with Mansi Mahansaria to decode her journey and the advice she wants to share with all of you people out there. 1441 Pizzeria, and I have with me a delicious looking paneer tikka pizza. And now it's got me wondering, how did all these fresh ingredients reach the restaurant in the first place? Well, I have the woman responsible for this very, very tough task. Mansi Mansaria of Just Deliveries. But her journey didn't just start off. She was actually an investment manager at a PE firm before she took this tough decision of starting her own business, or as her husband lightly calls her, a trucker. So let's find out what her entrepreneurial journey was like. Mansi, thank you so much for joining us on The Money Show. And I think I should kickstart your journey from where you kickstarted your journey, and that's your job. So why don't you first start off with what was your job like? I mean, you were an investment manager, you were working in the financial space. That does tend to give out a lot of moolah from our conversations, of course, with a lot of people in this space. So tell me a bit about your first job.
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. I graduated from FMS Delhi, and I joined IDFC from campus, and I worked with their private equity division for 3-4 years. So we used to fund companies that were building India's infrastructure.
Oh, okay, interesting. So now you are the one who's
Yes,
building
absolutely.
India's infrastructure.
I think a lot of that inspiration came from there.
Okay, all right. I'll talk a little more about your inspiration, but tell me also this, that when it came to your job, was it a high pressure job? I mean, was that one of the reasons why you decided that, hey, maybe I should now think of doing something else, or was it like just your regular 9-to-5 job?
It was an intense job, but it's not the stress angle that prompted me, honestly. I think it was a couple of reasons back then. I wanted to spend more time with my child. I wanted to build something of my own, get my hands dirty. But most important, it was that I wanted freedom, and I wanted freedom of time. I love traveling. And I used to hate asking for leaves and being subject to leave approval to travel.
I hear you.
So I wanted to create a company which would function and which would generate money whether or not I'm in office.
Okay, so some more flexibility in time. Okay, so that is something that sort of inspired you to leave your job. But of course, it's not easy. I mean, being a business person is not for everybody. And I'm sure during that transition, you did have certain difficulties, did you?
Absolutely. I think the first 3 years were really tough. For any business, it can be very challenging to set up from scratch, and then further depends on the industry you're in. For me, I had to deal with drivers and delivery boys and vehicle breakdowns and delivery of cakes and perishable foods. It's quite challenging. Jobs can also be very stressful, but the variables are few, In a business, there are way too many variables, and you have to get used to rejections. You have to get used to deciding things every single day. But if you overcome the 1,000-day challenge, people say there's a 1,000-day challenge, stick in your business for 3 years, things start looking up. Today we are in the 4th year of Just Deliveries, and I'm enjoying my journey. I'm enjoying building my company bit by bit. So it was very challenging. I think there were so many days when I'd wake up and I'd say, why am I doing this? Why don't I just go back to a job? That temptation can be strong. But stick in there if you believe in what you're building, and you'll go places.
So tell me a bit about Just Deliveries now. I mean, like you said, 4th year, and you gave our audience a bit of a hint by saying that you make all these cake deliveries and flower deliveries, and that I think is a very, very tough job, because I know how I struggle to balance my one pastry when I am traveling in Mumbai roads. So tell us a bit about Just Deliveries.
So Just Deliveries, we did start out as a cake delivery service, but we quickly pivoted. So now we deliver inventory for restaurant chains, for fresh food companies like for 1441. They need their pizza dough to be got at 4 to 6 degrees. They need their fresh vegetables, their cheese to be carried at the right temperature. So we move food from their central kitchen to their outlets. And the whole idea was that you have a Swiggy, you have a Zomato that brings food from the restaurant to the customer. But there's no service that allows restaurant chains to move their inventory, especially the whole small and medium restaurant chain fresh food companies. So that was the inspiration behind Just Deliveries, and touch wood, it's doing really well, because we enable our food clients to grow faster because they have the entire backbone of logistics now in capable hands.
Okay. Financially, when you made the transition, and I think the biggest difficulty is that when you're in a job, you have that fixed monthly income and you don't have to worry about that, right? But of course, now that you're a business person, it's not necessary that your income levels are, stable. They fluctuate a lot. So when it comes to your lifestyle, you have a child as well, his lifestyle, were there any drastic changes or cutbacks perhaps that you had to enforce to enable you to make this transition?
Yes, yes. I think it's very important to be frugal in the initial years. I think even while someone's in a job and thinking of a business, it's important to start building up savings, to be able to invest in your business as you grow. And even once in business, the initial years, it takes a lot of time to really generate a good amount of cash or even to match salaries. I'm still not there, but the fact that you're building something, the fact that you can see the end result, right, keeps one going. So yes, we can't be trigger happy with our credit cards anymore, knowing there's a paycheck coming. But yes, if we are frugal, we can get there.
So what's the biggest challenge then? I mean, now that you're a businesswoman versus when you were, simply working on that paycheck, what's the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur that you're facing?
Honestly, I think the challenges are many in the initial years, Mubina. It's quite taxing, but each day becomes better. And if like I just approached Just Deliveries as taking one step at a time, as doing small projects bit by bit. So I wouldn't say that, I mean, today I wouldn't trade for anything. So yeah, I don't find any challenges currently, but the first few years were definitely challenging.
Did you have a role model maybe in your family or your friends, someone who inspired you or guided you? Did you have any guiding force like that while you were in your journey?
Yes, my dad used to always put it in our heads that we have to be job creators.
Okay.
We have to build something of our own. I was very lucky that he put that into my head. And I was very lucky to have a great first boss at IDFC Private Equity, Louis Miranda, who really inspired me. And now, of course, my mom's been my greatest supporter, and my husband, Harsh, my in-laws. I think for a woman to succeed in business, she needs family support. If your family is with you, there's no stopping you.
When you started your business, did you have any second thoughts? I mean, maybe 6 months into the business or 7 months into the business that, hey, maybe I should just stop what I'm doing because I'm not seeing success. And were you ever tempted to go back to your job?
All the time, until last year. Until last year, I would actually ask my husband and be like, listen, should I just go back to a job? What is this? Where am I going with this? But not anymore. So like I said, the 1,000-day challenge.
1,000-day challenge. Okay. So if I have to look at Just Deliveries in year one, when you started, I mean, I think a parameter would be how many restaurants perhaps that you were catering to, or how many vans would you have. That too would be a great parameter to judge it with, versus what it is now. How would you look at the growth, and where are you now versus what you were back in 2014, 2015?
So we started off with 2 small air-conditioned vans, and we have since then I think grown 5 times in revenue. We now have 15 trucks, right from the smaller vans to the larger trucks. We were only in Mumbai, now we do intercity, Mumbai, Pune. So it's been a fabulous journey.
So where did you get your seed money from? I mean, purely was it when you were working? So how many years did you work for in a job?
I was working for about 6 years.
Okay, so 6 years I think is a good enough time to
Absolutely.
accumulate your savings.
Yes.
So did you start off your business purely on savings?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And since then, it's been surviving through the internal accruals of the profits.
Absolutely, absolutely.
a word of advice for all the women out there, for all the men also out there. I
Right.
mean, I know they too could use a little bit of advice, but they don't ask for it. But yeah, share some advice then for all the employees out there who want to be job creators, but of course have the same fears that how will that monthly income come in. What advice would you share with them?
So guys, if you're already in a job, it's like half the battle won, because you've already worked in big companies, you already know what professionalism is. And I think it's just two things. One is you have to be very passionate about some idea or some skill that you have, or you have to identify a clear need gap somewhere, that's not solved. So go after that, once you've identified that, once you know you're passionate about something and you want to commercialize it, please take the leap, and don't overthink, We tend to try and make perfect plans and try to do analysis and paralysis. Don't do that. Take the leap, because once you start swimming, your business will evolve, you will evolve, and you will keep changing and you will get success.
Okay, all right. Have something to be passionate about and don't overthink it. Once you found your path, just set straight towards it. Mansi, you've given us a lot of lessons, so thank you so much, and we wish you all the very best for Just Delivery.
Thanks, Mubina. Thank you so much.
So ladies, I hope this edition of The Money Show has given you more than enough inspiration to get rich and stay rich. I'm Mubina Kapasi signing off until next time.